Well, I miss you guys. Man, I'm tired of being at home. Don't know about you, but whew, it's hard being cooped up inside, right? And today's rainy, so not able to get outside. Anyway, where we left off in the book was uh, Susanna was actually very happy about being able to get on her horse and be riding again. So hopefully, she's going to send a message to the town. We'll see. All right. Alas, as much as I long for those days, they are long over. Her riding days, she means. It's hard to believe that our lives were once so carefree, long before talk and war crossed anyone's lips. These days, my constant duties and the danger lurking everywhere don't allow me any frivolous riding. I can't recall my last long ride even on Bolingbrook. Although I feel quite sore later on, the pleasure is well worth it. I smile as blustery winds inundate me with delight, sense of springtime. Then, with a start, I become conscious of my enjoyment and astonish myself. What a horrid creature I am to indulge myself in such a tragic time. The poor Blandford family is bearing the unbearable, no doubt, struggling under the crushing weight of their grief. My thoughts return to Stith. I can only imagine his searing pain. All at once, he has lost a fellow officer and his closest friend since childhood. It all seems unfair. Yes, Joseph is dead, but the world gets on living as if he never existed, myself included. Releasing my heavy sigh, I pull in the reins, nudge Musket, and pick up the pace. Gangs of slaves have spread out across the field, rooting the fledgling tobacco plants, but I don't see Big Hank. I ride across the few other fields growing wheat, flax, corn, but I don't see a glimpse of him. Especially his hulking frame is impossible to miss, much like Peter Francisco, the Virginia giant. Overheated and parched beyond words, I stop at a supply shack. I dismount from Musket and stretch my legs. Standing over a bucket of water, I weave my fingers together and gulp down several handfuls, savoring every drop despite its warmth. Stepping aside, I leave the rest for poor Musket, who's probably even thirstier than me. Sticking his nose deep into the bucket, he gulps down as fast as he can. Leaning against the shack, I sink to the ground, my face hot. As I catch my breath, I savor the rich, loomy scent of the freshly turned soil. Nearby, a man stands, startling me. Don't go telling me how much you done planted this morning. That's not what the rest of the gang done told me. You ain't done a lick, boy. There's no lying around here. The man is quite close, just on the other side of the shack. As the tirade continues, his angry voice sounds familiar. I can't believe it, but it's Big Hank. I've never heard him yell, even despite disciplining, so it's hard to know for sure. Come to think of it, he's never raised his voice around me. It just isn't his nature. He always wears the same easy smile, showcasing the considerable gap between his crooked teeth. The longer I listen, though, the more convinced I become. The angry man is definitely Big Hank, but I don't know who he's yelling at or why. There ain't no reason to do all this work. Without a doubt, it's a slave boy, but the voice is muffled. In some incoherent rambling, I make out some more words. Them bowling boys, they fight for their own freedom from the Brits, not us. He's sobbing now, his cries full of anguish. We don't get no chance to freedom. Never. I'm taken aback. I had no idea any of our slaves harbored such resentment. I cringe, realizing I never bothered to think about it. Big Hank's voice boomed, shaking with anger. I don't like being nobody's slave neither, but I'm going to tell you something. If I got to be a slave and my children got to be slaves, I want to be their slaves. Mistress Bowling, she's been getting by all these years without her boys and working just as hard as us. From sunlight to no light. All she can do is treat us right. And that's what she does. And Miss Susanna too. The slave boy cries out, "We ain't got no privilege out here. We ain't got nothing. I got a mind to set off on my own." As I mop my brow with my apron, I cock my head. Did I hear him right? Is he threatening to run away? I can only imagine Mother's unbridled fury. Penny ain't a real slave, not like us. With a flash, I know exactly who that is. It's Leroy. I should have guessed. They got special rules up there in the big house, and now I'm a real slave working out here in the sun every day. I bite my lip. I can hardly disagree with him. This is a common complaint among the field slaves. They believe those who work inside the house receive better treatment. He should have known better than anyone. Big Hank was incensed. I tell you what, Leroy, if we be free, where we gonna go then? All them colonies got slaves, all of 'em. A slave catcher be grabbing our papers and selling us all alone to some cruel master down in the south. You understand me? We animals for sure, then. You won't ever see your sister again. But I ain't got freedom here. What about the Brits? They done promised to set me free if I help them. The Patriots, they only want freedom for themselves. Well, I don't trust them lobsterback's promises either. What if they change their mind when the war be done and just send everyone back? They sure ain't going to bring them all to England in those fancy ships, that's for sure. Boy, I don't ever want to hear any more talk. Or you're getting a thrashing that you won't forget. You hear me? Silence follows by some sniffling. Big Hank yells even louder. You hear me? Leroy mumbles in his gravelly voice. Uh-huh. He doesn't sound convinced, though. And I tell you something else, even worse. You know Mistress Bowling don't like to split no families, but if you given her a hard time too long, you're going to find yourself down river mighty fast. I'm so engrossed that I fail to notice Musket has run out of water. He knocks the bucket hard against the shed in hopes of loosening a few more drops. A loud crack rings out. I scramble to my feet, hoping to get away before they discover me. Within seconds, though, Big Hank's face peeks around the corner. His eyes are round as full sun beating down on us. Miss Susanna, we didn't know you was there. His jaw hangs slack as grapes at me, without blinking. I fake a wide, toothy smile, then I struggle for something to say. Anything. Big Hank, I haven't been here but a moment, really. Now I can't stop myself from babbling. That silly Musket kicked over the bucket. Mother had something pressing to handle, so she sent me out here. Check on the planting. I hope I'm making at least an iota of a sense. Certainly looks like the beginning of another healthy crop. Leroy slinks around the corner with his eyes cast downward. Miss Susanna, I didn't mean nothing back there. Big Hank was trying to explain some things to me. Please, I don't want to be no trouble for you, or your sister, or my sister either. Not at all, Leroy. Musket and I must be heading back to the house. I'll be sure to tell Mother the planting is faring quite well, as always. I can attest to that in all honesty. Grabbing the reins, I remount Musket and retrace my route back. In fact, that's all I'm going to say, especially to Penny. There's no need to upset her. I also don't want to inflict more shame on Leroy or interfere with Big Hank's discipline. Like everything else, he's got the situation well under control. Deep down, though, I can't blame Leroy for resenting his bondage. After all, what gives any person the right to own another? With a grimace, I shake my head. There isn't anything to do about slavery, not right now anyway. Even though General Washington and Governor Jefferson have both spoken out against it, Virginia's laws forbid Mother from freeing her slaves unless the General Assembly approves it. So Leroy will remain her property. The reality offers no relief either. Even if Mother had such authority, our fields would lie fallow. Eventually, we'd face starvation as well as bankruptcy. Unfortunately, Leroy is correct. His only hope to obtain his freedom is to run off and join the British. However, there's no way to know if they'll actually keep their promise until the war finally ends. Thankfully, the journey to find the enemy down in Portsmouth would be treacherous, making it nigh on impossible for one boy on his own. I find solace in that, for everyone's sake, of course, I'm choosing to ignore the looming threat of another Arnold's raids. So, that is all I'm going to read for today. We know that Leroy is not happy, and neither is Big Hank, for that matter. And Susanna is questioning why they have slaves in the first place. So, we will see tomorrow what will happen.